Well, hey guys, welcome to the Fear Itself podcast, where we are talking all about horror movies, breaking them down, analyzing them, and just having some fun discussing them. My name is Oliver King, and
Peter Rebel.
we like to awkwardly introduce ourselves every time because we just can't sort it out. This week we are looking at the new Invisible Man. So this is the remake done by Leigh Whannell, and this is a good film. Lots of actual depth with the directors. Leigh Whannell's famously done Saw, the Insidious trilogy, and also recently Upgrade, which isn't, as you mentioned, a horror movie, but it's more of a action thriller. But it's got that element of technology in it. So what do you think of this one overall?
Overall, yeah, I liked it. If it's a yes or no, it's a yes.
Yeah, no, I think it was really interesting that they took it with like technology instead of the classic potion.
Original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the original's like, I watched the original yesterday because I had the day off, so that was nice. And so I ended up watching the original Invisible Man, and then I also watched Hollow Man. And the original Invisible Man is really good, actually, but
Because that's from 1933?
1933, yeah. And again, lots of good accolades in it, amazing acting, and it was pretty impressive what they were actually managed to do with it. Like, you could tell they were like doing things on strings and like keying things out in the film. So it was interesting how they put it together. But then you watch Hollow Man and you're like, oh my god, this is garbage.
But Kevin Bacon.
I know. I was like, Kevin Bacon was the best part.
Yeah.
But there is so much sexual violence in that movie. It's like, that's pretty much what the movie is.
Yeah.
It's like just...
Yeah.
It's like, and it's...
Yeah, because there's some scenes where he's like just groping people. Or
Yep.
trying
That's
to-
actually pretty much the movie.
Yeah.
It's like him being creepy to people the whole
Yeah.
time.
Well, this
And-
one's a...
Yeah.
Maybe it's not sexual violence, but it's emotional abuse.
Well, the
and
thing about
control
this one
and
is that-
domestic violence.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it made it, I think, really relatable to modern day.
Yeah,
films.
like it really... You know, what I really liked about it, too, is that I think a lot of filmmakers kind of pander to that sometimes. And, like, more in the modern era. But this one was, like... It was really baked into the plot in a really strong way. Like, it wasn't pandery. It was very authentic. And, like, you could just understand, like... The way it was played and the way it was written was really, really authentic, and like it really pulled you in and made you sympathetic.
Exactly. It did a good job of putting you in Celia, the main character's shoes. And
Yeah.
it does it immediately.
Yes. Oh, that opening
It
scene.
starts off at 10 in
Yeah.
fifth gear.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's jump right into the film, because this one, when we get into it, immediately like the shooting style of this was super impressive.
Yeah.
After you get I really liked the title, the opening title, and the little credits they had with like they had
splashes on the
Yeah, 'cause-
the water, the waves splash onto the
onto the title.
Yeah.
And it just like dissolves on it. It was a really cool effect. I wonder how much they spent on that.
most of the 7 million.
Yeah.
So 7 million, very low budget.
I can't imagine making something this complex with that low of budget. I mean, they had not that many characters in it, but they did a ton with it.
Yeah.
And I think I watched, what was I watching? I watched The Ritual, and it was kind of a similar
Oh.
thing where it was like,
On
they did a
Netflix?
lot with a really low budget.
Was it good?
It was
Should
really
we
good.
review that?
I did. I made a short video about it.
Oh, you did?
I excluded you. No, I was just bored last weekend, so I just decided to watch a horror
Right.
movie. But it was similar though, because like it was a small cast, but it was like a strong small cast, and then they built a really good world with that small number of people. And then here I can imagine most of the $7 million on this budget was spent on the effects, which
Yeah.
were phenomenal in my opinion.
Yeah. so it was
But
good.
much better than the original. But it was really impressive the way they started this off, because it's on this like beachside house on the side of like cliffs, and you have you have this fancy house. Like obviously this guy's many times over wealthy, and we later learn he's kind of the head of an optics company.
Yeah.
And
tech genius.
yeah,
And you kind of see it all as they show his house and all the gadgets.
And you can really tell like right away that she's in peril, because
Yeah.
she wakes up at like 3:52 or whatever it is, and she's just watching the clock, and she has planned her escape from this house. So they never like this is very much like a show don't tell sort of scenario where they're not like saying like, oh, I was abused and all of this. Like you get it.
Yeah.
You immediately get it. It's just like the way she's acting. She's sneaking out of bed.
Exactly. They don't. I like that because they don't. The director doesn't treat you like a fool.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah. Yeah. and
he doesn't mansplain it to you.
yeah. No. It's very much just shown in like she's an incredible actress.
Yeah. I think she makes it. You know, if
Yeah.
it wasn't for her,
Mm-hmm.
I think the movie would have been half the movie it was.
Yeah, like her performance, and she was also in Mad Men.
Mad Men,
and
Handmaid's Tale.
yeah, so she's very decorated in some really good stuff already. So she's got very dramatic acting, and I think I mentioned it to you before, but I would liken it to Winona Ryder's performance in Stranger Things, where she's like desperate and but clearly
Just
a little
manic.
bit unhinged.
Yeah.
So like you can understand as the movie progresses why people kind of doubt her,
Yeah.
because like she's a little bit.
Because you
not
know
off the
exactly, you know the truth in her words, but it's like there's no hard evidence yet.
Yeah.
So you're throughout the whole movie, you're kind of questioning.
Yeah.
So it's very cerebral, right? Like
I think for the first half of it, at least, you're kind of like
questioning.
Yeah, you're like, is she crazy?
Yeah, and
like, is this gonna just be she's
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
But in the end, obviously, there's an actual invisible man.
yeah. But even in the end, and maybe we should leave it to the end. But you're not actually sure.
Yeah,
You know?
it's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
and yeah, but really, really well done. But so this opening scene is just her sneaking out of bed. She's drugged. She's drugged Adrian, who's her husband, with diazepam,
Yeah.
and so he's asleep. But then she goes through great measures to like go and sneak her bag out of a wall that's in a hidden space in their closet, and she's just slowly like bringing everything out, making sure not to make noise. And since he's like this tech megalomaniac dude, he's got all the security cameras and everything. So she's thought ahead to like get the passwords, and like this also like kind of instills on us some confidence in her as an intelligent person who's capable of these planning.
Exactly.
And
even under the stress that she's in and the desperation, and she uses that technology to her advantage by like using the cameras to watch him sleep and on her phone. So
I thought that was brilliant.
As she makes her escape, she can see if anything's happened.
Right.
And then, she makes some mistakes where she, knocks over the. How do you forget you have a huge dog though?
Yeah. Named Zeus.
Zeus. But there's one scene in the start which I really loved where it's sort of like she's changing because she's getting ready to make her escape in the middle of the night, but then the camera pans to this empty hallway.
Yeah.
And it just plays with your expectations.
You're like, is he up?
Is he up? Because it doesn't show you the camera, and it just pans.
Yeah. Well, the whole time,
and it stays there
because she's got like
it's very Stanley Kubrick, very Shining, where it's just like the director knows what you're thinking because it's about an invisible man. It's about, is he invisible already? Is he about to come out of the shadows? And like the whole movie just does that, and I think it's great. Nothing happens in the first 15 minutes, but you are tense.
Oh yeah, like, and especially because like any sound really gets you, because we watched this in the theater too, and this is a great theater watch because we were watching this, and the first sound that really occurs in it, besides like the ocean in the background, is her hitting Zeus's water dish or the food bowl or whatever, and it is jarring. Like just the sound design it's spectacular in this.
And you just like cringe, and you can feel everyone else cringing around you.
Yeah,
she's cringing like
it's really, really tense.
Yeah.
And then she makes it out, getting through the passwords, making sure she's watching him through the security camera on her phone, that she's got this set up, and then she makes it to the garage and she's about to get out. And then this is where the dog shows up. I think it was like a Doberman or something like that. And then he's got an electric shock collar on his neck, which is actually another good little point too, that he's not only controlling and abusive of her, obviously, but also like all of the things around him. Like he's a true monster. And so she tries to take the shock collar off of it, and then he like bumps into the car and sets off the car alarm.
Yeah.
And
it goes off. And
and then she's just gotta book it.
She legs it, and you see him wake up because the lights turn on. and she runs through the forest behind the house or whatever to reach a road.
You know you're rich when you have a forest behind your house. Right. And then she like makes it over like this.
Well, it's also like a Ferrari in the or something in the
an Audi, I think it was.
Was it an Audi, an R8 or something?
Something like that.
Some supercar. But anyway, she reaches the road and she's waiting for who we find out is her sister to pick her up. And the sister doesn't know, you know.
Yeah, she doesn't know what's going on because she hasn't been communicating with her recently.
Yeah, exactly. I actually thought when she hit the road, because the sister's not there and the car's coming, and I was like, oh no.
Is that him?
Is it him? And it's not. But like, again, it's like this managing of expectations where it just, you know, I think what the previous scenes did was make you doubt each scene, right?
Yeah, especially those camera angles. I think, I agree with you, because like they play with that later on too, where they're just like the camera like pans away from her and it's just like looking somewhere else, and you're like, what's there?
Nothing or everything, right?
Yeah. So she gets in the car with her sister. Mm-hmm. Sister's name is Emily. And Emily doesn't know what's going on. It's like, why did you call me to come do this?
In the middle of the night, yeah.
And as we'll learn later in the film, they have a bit of a fraught relationship with one another. And so they're in the car together, and then he just comes out of the woods. Running. And it's scary.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get a good view of him for most of the film, which I think is a huge win. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he's a big guy, though. Like, he's
athletic.
Yeah, athletic, strong dude. And he just comes and just punches this window in. And it's a good, scary thing. Like, he actually, like, comes out like a freaking monster, smashes in the window, and, like, she barely gets in the vehicle. And notably, at this point, she drops her diazepam as well on the side of the road.
And he finds it.
And they get away.
Yeah.
So, great openings.
Yeah, I think... very, very, one of the best, maybe.
One of the best,
opening for... I don't know, I liked it.
It set everything up really, really well.
Yeah.
So going into the next section now, where you actually find that she's staying with her friend James. So she's escaped from Adrian. And so, honestly, every time I hear Adrian, I can't... Adrian! Had to do it. If I didn't say it out loud, I'd be laughing about the name Adrian the whole freaking time. I can't hear the name Adrian without... Adrian! Some names are just like that, man. So she's with her friend James, and this was actually kind of an interesting relationship. I didn't quite get it.
It's never actually explicitly explained their relationship. You know they're good friends, but you don't know from when or why. But
he's a very handsome man.
Very handsome. He's the opposite. And you find out later that Adrian's also very handsome.
Yeah.
But they're quite opposite. He's more blue collar.
Because he's a cop.
He's a cop, and just more down to earth, right?
Yeah, he's funny and like kind of, and he's encouraging and nice.
Yeah, and he's a comfort. He's a protective figure, right?
Yeah.
In the film and to her in the relationship.
Yeah, he's very much like, it's interesting because he's a protector. And he's got his daughter as well.
Yeah,
but it's interesting later on in the film, like he's unable to protect people later on too, which is, I like the way they kind of play with that, because he's an intimidating person.
He is, and he's as much as Adrian's fit. Oh man, James is. There's a scene where he's just like leaning over, and I'm like, whoa.
Well, the funny thing is like,
whoa.
I'm feeling very emasculated right now. Well, it's so funny too, because like the whole time he's at home and he's doing his home renovations, and that, so he's like kind of talking to him, but he's just like the manliest man. He's just like, I'm just painting things. Don't mind me. So he's a fun character too, and he's got a daughter, Sydney, and she's probably 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And because she's transitioning,
something like that.
I can't remember which fashion school. I'm in Canada and you're Australian. We don't know the American schools that well. It's some famous
fashion.
Yeah. We put on the clothes that were laying on the floor this morning.
It's not even my clothes. It's his.
We share because we buy the same clothes from the same place. Oh God, we're weird. But I think he's a really good character to have, though, because you do feel secure. Like he does provide that.
Every time he's in any scene, you feel like, well,
they're not going to get attacked.
They're not going to attack, but like you also kind of know that one it will be challenged at one point, right?
Right. Yeah, and yeah, because as much of a protector as he is against an invisible man,
tech genius, right?
Yeah, frick. It's like fighting the Batman, but invisible.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he's really great though. Like all of the acting and the dialogue is really natural, which I appreciated because like sometimes you get a little bit stilted
or
weird.
Overacted,
yeah,
especially in
and you can
thrillers
just
or
tell
horror.
that they were kind of friends. The banter was pretty realistic, and he encourages her to go to the like. He's trying to get her to like slowly increase her comfort zone and boundaries by stepping out of the house.
And getting the mail because she can't even do that, right?
Yeah, because Adrian doesn't know where Cecilia is at this point, and so she's kind of been hiding away from him and trying to keep away. And so and she's also trying to readjust herself to the world by slowly exiting the house and not be completely agoraphobic about leaving. So she's trying to kind of reclaim herself and yeah, so I think it's a good way that they establish that, and he's encouraging her to kind of leave, and then they're also kind of building up their relationship as well. But you can tell she's got pretty strong paranoia hanging over her head.
And then her sister comes over, and then you find out that Adrian's committed suicide, right?
Yeah, because at this point, and it's interesting too, because she kind of tries to chase her sister away.
Yeah, knowing that he knows where you live because she thinks this much of Adrian, at least his capabilities.
Yeah.
And his
Yeah, the way she thinks about him and the way she talks about him when he's not around.
He can do anything.
He can do anything, and it's just.
And will do anything.
And yeah, like you get the level of control and the level of like intensity of his personality just through how she talks about him.
Exactly. She does say, she controls what she said, what she wore, how she thought.
And you get hints of the thing is again, it's another. I think what's not said, like what's left out of the dialogue and what's left out of what's mentioned is just it's a lot more terrifying because like there's clearly elements of sexual violence in there, which is very relevant for like the overall discussion of the film, which is basically one of an abuser. Like, because it's not like the original Invisible Man in that he became invisible and started going insane. It's that there's this insane person who's incredibly controlling who conceived of this contraption to make himself invisible to exert even more control.
Worse even, yeah.
So, and the whole idea of him being invisible, like the invisibility of an abuser even after they've left, there's that presence that continues to follow her throughout the film. So she's always, you don't get right away that he's invisible. You know the title of the film and all that, but there is this invisible presence that seems to plague her and make her paranoid. But it's the trauma from the abuse that she suffered, and so I like the way that they kind of play with that there was this invisible person that always is following her, but it isn't necessarily like the actual physical titular invisible man. Yeah. It's the presence or like the residual damage that he caused her psychologically.
So there's two villains. Well, it's all the same villain, but effectively.
But he's actually physically there too.
Yeah.
So one more level of terror.
I believe he is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is it plays with it so much. You're like on and off. He's there, he's not, and you're like, you wonder if it's gonna go the route of she's just imagining it the whole time. Exactly. But yeah.
So you find out. Well, you're told that he's committed suicide.
Yeah.
And then you meet the brother, who's his lawyer as well.
Yeah, because I guess him and his brother. So you have Adrian.
Adrian.
Adrian. Every time.
And Tom.
Tom. Oh man.
Okay.
We're gonna do Rocky. That's not a horror.
Or is
the Rocky Horror Picture. I don't know.
And part of the will is that he's leaving her a large sum of money, like millions. Is it 10 million?
5 million?
A lot of millions.
Millions.
That is, that depends on her not being in on a few things, right?
Yeah, it's conditional. So she gets $100,000 a month, I believe. And then Tom is the lawyer who represents Adrian after his passing, so they're brothers. And so he's kind of a skis ball. You kind of get that. He's a bit of a wiener. And
you do feel some humanity for him.
There's one scene that actually like builds on him, and I enjoyed that because you actually like It's a good.
But then is it a lie as well?
Yeah, it's a good scene. Like
we'll get up to that.
Again, the directing and like just how this was written, spectacular.
Exactly.
It was really really well done. So they talk and like she signs on and like he also points out that he's in an urn, like that he's
behind
his
you.
ashes.
He's always close to you.
Yeah, he's always close.
But she doubts all that's happening, even the money. She's like,
because like that's one way that in typical fashion abusers would control somebody too, is like monetarily. Like you can see that in a lot of ways, is where like it's like a tracking mechanism. Like when somebody's overly zealous about their finances and then their spouse or their partner is overspending or something, they'll exhibit controlling. It's another tool of control. And I think it's almost like a way for him to track her, because it's like his money going into her bank account, so she has to give her banking information to Tom, and it's just like this. There's going to be something to do with that.
And even just the money, it's now dependent on him, exactly. Even in his passing. Right?
Exactly. And so, and she does notably go out and like try and look for a job and everything like that. But I think after all she's suffered, she's like, why not?
Yeah.
Like.
And then she tries to do something good with it too.
Yes.
By using that money to pay for Sydney, her friend's daughter's schooling, right? Yeah,
it was actually like it was nice that she tried to do that. And again, that's where you get like that level of friendship and naturalness. So it's so she comes home and like she's starting to improve now that she knows Adrian's dead. And so she celebrates and buys James a new ladder.
Yeah.
And they have like kind of a cute scene where like she sets up like an envelope on the top of a shelf because like she bought them like this ladder and put a ribbon on it and whatever. And a ladder. You're welcome. Thanks for letting me stay at your place indefinitely.
And that's where you find out where that money is going to.
Because she's put it on like a shelf so that Sydney goes up and gets it.
And then it takes a dip again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because she's kind of there and she's kind of evening out a little bit. And then you get this scene in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And this is excellent. I think, is this the best scene in the film? It was one of my favorites because it's the first time you actually, like, she's off screen, so it's not her imagining it, so you actually get introduced to the fact that there's an invisible presence.
Yeah.
And, the scene before that is what sets this up, because that's where you get, like, these weird shots, like these POV shots down the hallway of them, like, celebrating that he's dead and stuff.
Or even just in her room where does that come before the kitchen scene?
I think it comes right after the kitchen scene. Yeah, because that's when it becomes like more and more obvious that there's a true presence in the house.
So are you talking about the knife dropping?
The knife, yeah. Because
she's cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll let you do this scene.
Sure. She's cooking dinner and whatever. I think Sydney's home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens and she has to leave the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And drops the knife.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't hear a sound. And then she's gone from the scene, and the pan that she has on suddenly like gets turned to high. So then it's like this huge flame that slowly burns the bacon. Oh, the bacon! Was it bacon?
It gets torched. It's really good because it just holds on this stationary shot of the kitchen, where
and
like
then things just happen.
Yeah, and it's just like fully on fire.
Yeah.
And I like how smart Sydney is too. It's like, don't throw water on it. It's a grease fire.
And they use a fire extinguisher.
Oh yeah, because
Sydney's like, well, you did that.
Well, it's good too because like the fire extinguisher does come back later too.
Yeah.
So obviously when you're fighting an invisible man, you got to get all your powder, smoke, and paint out so that you can find them and track them. So it's a good way to like establish that there's actually a presence there, and since she's out of the room as well, that it's actually something physically there. Yeah. So after the kitchen scene, they have a really good, another good follow-up scene because she's starting to kind of imagine that there was something there. Like she's just feeling.
Yeah, you can see that she's noticing something, just like.
Because she can tell the way that it feels when
Adrian's
there. So like he's left quite the mark on her.
Yeah.
And the next scene is where she really
alone
believes that this is happening. So is this is the one where she's in bed, right?
Is she in bed?
Is she, because she's in bed with Sydney and they're both asleep in the bed.
No.
Is there something before that one?
Is that the one where the breath that comes first?
Is it? Oh man, I gotta like iron those out.
Because when it leads up to
Right.
the footsteps and the couch.
Well, however the sequence goes, there's a couple of them where it's like, again, these really neat POV shots, and like the use of negative space in it is really good because she's standing in a room, but it's holding on, like it's like she's just in frame on the side, and then there's this big empty space. So it's just like, it's like telegraphing that there's something there. And she always is looking over her shoulder and walking through the house, like
going outside and seeing,
kind of poking around it.
Because like there was a point where the door opens,
yeah,
on its own, and she's like, "Whoa!"
And then she goes outside to check it out, and then she's breathing, and
you see her breath, and then you see a breath behind her.
Yeah. So, again, it's not just psychological; it's like there's physical presence there, and then whether it comes before or after, I can't quite remember. But she's in bed with Sydney because they're sleeping in the same bed together.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
And
this is one of the earlier ones. You're right.
Yes. And so they're sleeping, and then something pulls the covers off of both of them.
Yeah.
And then you see like these flashes.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of imagine it's either a flashlight or, as it turns out to be, a smartphone flash.
Eventually, yeah.
So she gets up and she kind of suspects, like, it's weird. Like, it's weird that the blanket would be like completely off like that. And so she goes forward to like check out the blanket, and then she's still kind of feeling like there's something there. Like, she looks over at the chair in the corner, and of course, since Sydney's studying fashion, there's all these mannequins with wearing clothes everywhere, and it's funny because they look like the original Invisible Man with like the stylish coat and the fedora and everything.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Nice nod to the original.
Yeah, there's a couple interesting little nods to it, and the chair is another one where it's like she kind of thinks that she sees like butt cheeks in the seat. And so she goes and like throws the comforter or a blanket over top of it and like feels crazy. And then she goes to pull the blanket back on and she can't. And you're like, this is another one of those things where you're just like, because clearly there's something stepping on it and holding it there.
Yeah, you can see the prints.
And then
it moves closer.
And then it moves closer to her, and you're like, oh my god. Really good tension in this one. I think it's solid with how it creates that. And then she like fully like pulls it back, but it kind of rushes at her too, like. And then she screams and like wakes up James and Sydney and everything. Yeah. And so she says that there's something there, but this is when they begin to suspect that she's a little bit off kilter.
Yeah.
And so they're beginning to suspect that she's more damaged than might have originally been thought.
And leading up to this, she's been telling people, I think he's alive. I think he's still around.
He would be the kind of person to fake his own death.
Yeah.
So right after this, she immediately thinks that like he's actually made himself invisible. So she takes James without telling him what it's about to go see the brother Tom. Yeah. And so they have this meeting together. And this is where they actually do a good job with Tom to make him seem like a sympathetic character, because they sit down and she's like talking about and like there's some credibility because he was like an optics guy, and she says it's not out of his realm of like
he could do this. She believes he could make himself invisible.
Yeah. Right. And so she tells this to Tom. She's like, I think he's found a way to make himself invisible, and tell him to please stop.
Yeah.
Because she thinks he's in on it with him.
Yeah.
And so he talks about, being kind of under the thumb of his older brother, where he was abused as well and controlled and manipulated. And this is where you feel actually some sympathy for Tom. And he kind of delivers the line, don't let him... it's more about, I can't remember what the exact line is, like it's more about the way he makes you feel, as opposed to like what he's actually capable of. So he's good at getting in people's heads.
It's what he does. And then he says he's glad, he felt relief when he heard his brother died as well. And then you're kind of like, oh,
so you feel sympathetic, and then you also maybe feel like maybe she is crazy.
And again, leading back to there's doubts. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And James is probably like, again, he's sympathetic to his friend and all.
And he's just like,
I don't think he's invisible.
So he's got his doubts.
Though to be fair, if somebody like created a suit in this day and age that would be like render you invisible, and I like the design of like how they did it technology-wise. And you can only imagine that there might be some way of doing this. So, like, it's just on the cusp of being, like, believable, too. So I think they do really well with that.
It is.
Like,
with Elon Musk, like, anything's possible.
If you can shoot a Tesla into space.
And, like... Yeah.
And so, like, and that's actually a good adaptation of it, because you have the original, which is, like, when people were messing around with chemicals and all that, and then you have the transition to, like, more of, like, it's the updated technological revolution sort of experience, I guess you would have with that suit. So she's starting to really suspect that he's invisible, but that kind of quelled some of her fears. But then right after that, she goes back home, or I guess back to James's house, and she still feels like something's, like, lingering around her, and she's getting more and more evidence of this. And something specific happens. Oh yeah, she goes for her job interview.
Yes.
And this, again, a really good scene. So she's starting to, again, try and feel a little bit normal, and then she goes to this job interview to show off the fact that she's an architect. And so she takes her little case of drawings with her, and she goes to meet this guy who's interviewing her. He's a bit of a creep.
He's, like, hitting on her.
Yeah, he's hitting
Do all the pretty girls go to Paris? With his mustache.
Oh, man. He had a very punchable face. And he's just like, the hipsters in this movie, man. They are here in space.
Well, it's San Francisco.
Fair enough.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is. So it's like, oh, man, it's just funny, though. It's just like there's a lot of hipsters. It reminds me of, like the early 2000s when you had, like, the jocks with frosted tips and chains and, like, puka shell necklaces and stuff. And you go back and watch those, and it's like, I wonder how this will age. Just all these people with, like, fantastic hair and, like, crisp mustaches and such. It's just kind of funny. So she's having this interview with him, and he's asking her questions, and then it gets to the point where, like, he asks her to show example of her work. And so she opens her bag, and there's nothing in it. And she, like, looks confused, and then she seems kind of dazed, too. Like, her reaction is kind of funny. Like, she's not like, oh, my God, I can't believe I forgot this. And he's cool with it. He's like, oh, you can send them to us later.
He's a chill hipster.
He's a chill hipster. But then she starts to really kind of go downhill, and she's obviously been affected by something. And I thought
and then she passes out.
Yeah, I thought at first it was just like her panic was overtaking her. But it turns out she ends up in the hospital, and she's been drugged. And drugged notably, they don't tell her right away, but she goes home, and she's kind of recovering from that incident, and she's in the shower. And you mentioned this, and I think it's interesting, too, that in the trailer, there was a handprint on the shower, but that's not in the film.
Yeah.
And so I can't...
They've omitted a couple scenes, which...
Right. A couple red herrings, whatever. I try not to watch the trailers because there's too much stuff given away. It's like, oh, you gave away all the scares, you assholes. So she's in the shower, and then she gets the call from the hospital giving her test results, and they say it's diazepam. And she hasn't been taking it, because now that she's not being abused, she probably can sleep a little bit better. Maybe less so recently, but they tell her it's diazepam.
She's like, what diazepam?
And then this is, again, the way they set these things up is so awesome. Right on the counter, there's the diazepam she dropped, and it's got a bloody thumbprint on it.
Yeah.
And so she knows that that's the diazepam that she dropped on the road, because she knows that it fell out of her bag. Like, she noticed it was missing.
Exactly. And then she starts to block out things, and you can hear on the phone that the doctor has something else to tell her. It's like, there's something else we need to talk about, and we should meet.
Yes.
But before she can...
Yeah, she's
that's
kinda,
explained.
Like, phasing out of the conversation. She doesn't even hear it.
Exactly. And then she goes to see her sister. Is it directly after this? But she goes to see her sister, because now she's sure.
Yeah.
Because of this print and the diazepam she dropped. But when she goes to see her sister's, like, really cold when she answers the door. And
you always get the impression that they had kind of a bad relationship anyways.
Yeah. But she did try to help her, right?
Yeah.
With saving her, and then she was kind of her representative at the meeting with Tom discussing the will. And she's like, oh, like, you want to talk all of a sudden? And Celia's kind of like confused. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, well, you hate me with the email that you sent. And Celia's denying it.
This was kind of frustrating. I get that they had a bad relationship going into that, but there's like a lot of ways. Cecilia's not always the best communicator.
No, and like, it's... Exactly.
It's like you could easily prove that it wasn't you who wrote that email, I think.
Well, and
maybe not. Maybe the trust had been like
condition,
really.
And it like you go back to the email because like you end up reading it and it says, I hate you. I wish you died instead.
Of Adrian.
Like that's pretty. That's a big 180, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Emily is her name.
Yeah.
Didn't even want to discuss like why.
Well, like that's where like again it kind of hides stuff in the vagueness where it's like what happened.
So
to
you
these
assume
people?
that it was tense before anyway,
right? And so you're like, how many times has this trust been violated or whatever? And and the other thing is there's a huge wealth disparity between the two of them. So I think that actually I don't know if that plays into it, but you see like where Emily lives, and then you see where Cecilia came from, which was like she was the partner of like the really wealthy Adrian. So like, I think there was a bit of like, a rift between them for that. Potentially, I'm not sure if that's true, but like, Emily lived in kind of like the bottom of an apartment complex. Yeah. But I think there was some sort of disparity between them. But then something must have happened between them. But then this email says horrible things. And then she's just also worried that nobody's believing her of what's going on. So she kind of has this breakdown. And so she's at James' house again on the couch, or on her bed, I think. And she just kind of rolls off onto the floor, and she's just like sobbing and just having a brutal time of it. And Sydney comes in and comforts her. And this is another good setup. Kind of a weird one, though.
It's weird once you think about the physics of it.
Yeah.
But, considering, the situation and all the context, and, it's not... And, like, who else are you going to... But I'll let you finish
Yeah,
the scene.
so, like, she's comforting her and everything. And then all of a sudden, like, some invisible force just smacks Sydney. But then she blames Cecilia for it.
Yeah, who's in front of her, but she gets smacked down.
Yeah, it's weird. It'd be like if I'm sitting here and all of a sudden you just got like whacked in the back of the head and you're like, dude!
They were a little closer, and Sydney's taller than...
Yeah.
Sydney's taller. She's a bigger person than Cecilia, but she just gets like smacked. She just gets clocked, eh?
It's like, man, Cecilia's got those fast hands. Like, just whacked her out of nowhere.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's bizarre and maybe slightly unbelievable, but I guess they kind of set that up for you too to like know that it's not her.
Yeah.
And she's been talking about like this invisible figure for a while, but Sydney immediately blames Cecilia for hitting her. Like, why did you hit me? And she's obviously like shaken by this because it's an abuse situation again. And then James goes full like protective dad on the situation where he comes in and like he immediately like puts distance between them, and that's where like again I really like him and I'd understand that situation because like he's in the dark on what just happened. Like nobody saw really what happened, so he's got no point of reference. And she's been talking about this invisible man and it's Adrian, and he does these things, he manipulates everybody, and
and he's like
sounding completely unbelievable.
You need to calm down. I need to prioritize my daughter's safety here. She's scared. And they leave. They leave her alone.
Yeah.
And now she's alone.
Alone with the invisible man. Cue a really good sequence because, again, where she showcases kind of how smart she is in terms of like she goes to the kitchen, grabs some coffee grounds, and sprinkles them on the ground. Yeah. Maybe not perfect as a defense.
Maybe you're right. This is the scene where you see the breath. Is this part of that sequence?
I don't know when you see the breath.
Because sometimes you get a bit and then it gets more.
Yeah.
But
I think maybe this is the point where you see the breath. There's a lot of invisible man
and then it escalates.
Antics. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of exactly. There's a lot of. Did something happen?
We only watched this once so far, so it's.
Yeah.
And I guess we could read the Wikipedia plot, but we're lazy.
She's convinced. Mm-hmm. And you're right. She gets the grounds.
It's a smart idea. Yeah. I mean, like, but there's ways
and a knife.
And a knife. Right. Yeah.
But you'd think though, because if he's there, he'd be seeing this. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's gonna, and like there's other ways to circumvent this.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like a pile of coffee on the ground. She's hoping to see his footprint. But it's like
something.
But I could jump that and just like drop kick somebody in the face, right? If I'm invisible,
and you know he's athletic.
Yeah, exactly.
He could just lunge and do something. But anyway,
but he's playing mental games.
Exactly.
That's his thing. He doesn't care about, like, he's been physically abusive and like sexually abusive and like a whole bunch of other things. But like his whole thing is he wants to like get in people's heads and really wreak havoc on them. And so she stands there and she has like kind of a monologue with him, like, why me? Like, of all the people, she kind of like analyzes herself as somebody who's not terribly unique. And so she says, like, why me?
Yeah.
And
with everything at his fingertips.
She's
attractive,
yeah.
But she's like saying things like, you could have had any woman, much more beautiful women. And yeah, why her?
I wonder what the answer to that question is. And I don't think it's that it's some, like, she doesn't...
It's not physical. Maybe it's that he can control her.
Yeah. Maybe it's like the one thing that would leave him. Like, he's trying to control something that's difficult to control. And so, like, he's that type of person where it's like anybody else might be easier for him to manipulate and control with what he has.
Exactly. It's not that he can, because although he is controlling her,
but
it's that always, it was a challenge,
and she's always resisting and like undermining and like, and which is what makes her such a compelling character. Like, even in this, like, she's always got fight left in her.
Exactly.
And
he's just a formidable
control freak.
Yeah.
And so she has like this monologue where she's like, why me? And you could, at this point, there's nothing left to take, which he proves very wrong. And so, but then, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, because I was like, I completely underestimated what he is. And because like I thought it was just a guy walking around in an invisible suit kind of a thing, right? And so for a second I thought that because she calls his phone so that he might make a sound, and it comes from right above her, and I was like, oh shit, can he stick to the ceiling?
He's a tech genius and he's invisible. Why not?
It's like, did he just make like some Spider-Man shit? I was like, no. Like, my brain didn't jump to the obvious conclusion that the phone is in the attic above her. I was like, is he on the ceiling? It's like, that's so much more terrifying. Like, if they had gone that route,
he's a chameleon. The chameleon.
I was like, is he just like right across?
That explains all the other things.
Yeah, because I was like, because that would be absolutely horrifying.
You do wonder how he gets around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because he follows and he lingers.
Yes.
When does he take a break? And obviously, because he's invisible, you never know when he's there and when he's not. Like,
right.
He's obviously there when he wants to be, and he's manipulating. But
I get the impression that he's somebody who, like, when he's not invisible, he kind of like eavesdrops, and he just he's watching situations. Like, I get the impression that before being invisible, he was kind of like that anyways, where he's like, he sneaks and he listens and he does things in secrecy.
But even transport, like,
yeah.
Let's say you're not wearing the suit. Okay, two scenarios. You're wearing the suit, you drive your car to the place. Like, you're an invisible dude driving a car. Like, people would notice unless he's, like, got blacked out.
Exactly.
Right, and then where did you park the car? I just thought about the logistics of what he's doing, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, like, he's got an 80-hour week ahead of him.
Yeah, but he's also, like, very capable.
Yeah, he's probably thought ahead and planned ahead for all of these things, like riding the invisible bicycle.
And you do find out, you wonder, like, is he in it alone or not, right?
Yeah, that's,
You also wonder if it's him.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a good point. Because, like, maybe he does get around by somebody else's help, which we'll get to.
Right.
And so...
sorry, maybe I jumped the gun there.
No, but again... This scene, anyways, is like she goes up to the attic to check on the phone. So she gets her new present ladder, goes up into the attic, and in the back of the attic, she finds all of these things that indicate to her that he is definitely still alive and he's fucking with her. So she finds the portfolio that she was missing, her architectural portfolio, the cell phone, the butcher knife, and I think that's it. And the cell phone's got the pictures of her sleeping. Yeah, so everything's there, and it's notably got the text message that says surprise. Yeah, she gets a text message. And so, like, while she's looking at it. Exactly. And then she kind of hears some sounds from behind her. It's like, where is this guy? It's like, he in the attic. And since James has been doing home renovations, he's got all this paint and excess carpet and all this stuff kicking around up there. And this was probably the best scare, I think, where she goes and grabs a bucket of paint and like she suspects he's kind of at the bottom of the ladder. Did this one get you at all?
Yeah, it did.
And like she dumps the bucket of paint down, and this is the first time you actually see kind of what he looks like. And
he's that close to her.
And he's like right there.
With the patterns, and it's just kind of unnerving.
Yeah, his face kind of looks
faceless.
Like yeah, it looks like a golf ball.
Yeah.
And so it's just like he's got the wiffle ball suit on.
And he's just, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, like that Metal Gear Solid surprise.
Yeah. Surprise, motherfucker.
Oh, Dokes.
I miss Dokes. You know what? Who has better biceps, Dokes or James?
No way.
I think Dokes has like...
They have similar voices too, yeah. Like that deep, velvety, like...
Damn. And they're both cops?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe it's a connected universe.
Yeah.
Dokes
I wonder if this is part of a connected, the dark universe.
I think they wanted to make that, but I think they realized that they fucked up a couple of them too badly,
too
with
early. Godzilla and...
The Mummy.
The Mummy. Oh, the Mummy.
Well, there's the MonsterVerse. I don't know if that was part of it.
Is that MonsterVerse and... Am I connecting the two different ones? Sorry?
Everybody's trying to make a universe out of everything.
So, Godzilla's MonsterVerse. The Mummy
I think what we
dark
really
universe.
need is a Toy Story universe and a Godzilla universe. But animate all of the Godzillas so they're all like Rex. Roar! Shooting Legos out. So like she dumps this paint on him. And like with any movie you're going to have a few little complaints. I'm going to have this one complaint here. And everybody can just completely ignore this, but since we paint cars for a living, and she dumps paint on him, and he just goes and washes it off in the kitchen sink,
and
like
there's
nothing.
no more droplets.
Oh, there's no more droplets of paint. No, paint doesn't work like that.
No.
Especially like,
and it just washes all off.
Yeah, it's like, dude.
Unless his suit is like
self-cleaning or something,
or it just nothing sticks, which is probably if you want to be invisible, you want it to be kind of like resistant,
right? Because if it got scratches on it or anything like that, yeah, he's probably maybe
you want things to slide off.
Fine, I'll let it go.
But it is paint, and I think it's a bit much.
I've never gotten paint off of anything, and he just like gets in that kitchen sink and he is efficient.
Yeah,
he's just like.
So he runs. There is a trail, but it's a pretty minuscule trail. And she follows him to the kitchen, and you see he's washed it off. And here's another part, like, he's strong, and he's athletic, and he's large, but like, she turns around and he attacks her finally, right?
Yeah.
And lifts her up. I guess you could do it.
Yeah,
she's small.
She's small, and he's like 6'5".
Yeah,
he's at least he's well into the 200 pounds limit. So.
He's probably doing CrossFit,
yeah, because he's a hipster.
Orange Theory,
He definitely.
Well, that one that Marky Mark does.
It's just some P90X. That's like 10 years old, so probably not P90X.
But he
has a Bowflex.
He grabs her. It lifts her up, and she fights back. Yeah, I think she does a great.
Oh yeah, and it's a good invisible fight scene because you can
feel
like
she does a great. She does it well. Like you can tell what's being held down and what,
And then she's smashing stuff over him and like
plates and.
She's taking some Krav Maga.
Yeah, and she gets thrown around, but she gets away.
Yeah,
and she gets dragged a lot.
And I think this was actually like really well done because an invisible fight scene has the potential to be really ludicrous.
You think obviously when she gets lifted up, that's all her.
Yes.
That's with the help of something, right?
Yeah.
So, but when she's being held down, I think that's all her, right?
Yeah, and it's impressive, like CGI when she's smashing plates over his head, and it looks like it's just hitting. Yeah, it looks real, and so like really, again for that kind of budget, I'm really impressed. It's like this is not an Avengers budget.
No.
And so, really impressive. Much better than Sue Storm in Fantastic Four. Oh, yikes. Again, right in that era of Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man. And it's just like they were just travesties of CGI. And I get that it's developing. I'm very...
And you got to use it to develop. You got to use it.
For sure.
But it's good here.
Yeah. But at least the writing could have been good the other time.
Where it is here.
Yeah.
In this movie. And she gets away, she runs, and you can see that there's footage of her running away.
Yes.
But you're you know, everyone, you know, you're pretty like invested in these scenes, and you're kind of like, and she calls an Uber or a Lyft.
Yeah.
And I think this is a funny scene too, because like she gets in the car, and you know, all this stuff has happened, and it's kind of like ramped up, and he's just like turning his
slowly
wheel
turning
and
She's
turning
like,
it back. She's like going. I'm just like, oh my god. He's gonna open the door and drag her out,
Just
right?
Sebastian, the Uber driver's like, oh, we'll make it.
Is that his name?
Sebastian? I don't remember what it was. It was just like,
oh, that's
we'll get
far.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you there. It's just like, move your ass.
Yeah, she's like in like a pajamas and like in the middle of the road. Just go. Just go.
I gotta turn around safely in my Escalade or whatever it is.
But they end up going back to the house, Adrian's house.
Yeah. Adrian. I honestly thought most of the movie was gonna take place there.
Right.
Because
it's large.
Yeah, and it's kind of like techy and stuff, and there's lots of stuff you could play with there.
Yeah.
But it's only like the initial scene and then this scene.
This scene
And
the
then,
end.
and then the end. So I guess they do move around a bit, and it keeps it fresh.
She's back there, and all the codes are the same, so she can get in.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's been, you know, no one has been living there, and everything's covered. But then the dog's still there.
That was weird. It's like, is somebody watching the dog?
So exactly. So one, then you know, if someone is, then you know someone's been messing with her. Right?
Obviously, somebody's been feeding the dog.
Exactly.
So somebody's
and she tried to let it go too, right?
Yeah.
But it's back.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been, I'd say, at least weeks, if not months by now.
Yeah, probably months by now.
And this dog's here fending for itself, or you assume it's not, and then because if it's not, then who else is clued in? But whatever, right?
Yeah. And so she goes and she finds the suit. She finds that, like, it's interesting the way it's unveiled, because she finds the suit. You kind of got a glimpse of it when she was escaping earlier, where it's like kind of suspended between these like kind of clamps.
Yeah, downstairs in the lab.
And so it's just basically a series of cameras interwoven together, cameras and reflective screens. So it's like, I guess, a 360-degree camera that would face out and then also project what it's viewing
behind it
or whatever. So like conceptually, you look at it and you're like, okay, this, like, you can suspend your disbelief and you could say, like, this is probably something somebody's working on somewhere.
Exactly.
So it's like, it might not be perfectly invisible, the one that somebody else creates, but it's like, if they're all high resolution enough screens and cameras, you're like, this is conceivably like possible.
Exactly.
So
if you can believe Ant-Man, you can believe this.
Just some bullshit science, whatever.
Like,
I just saw time travel.
If you can shrink between atoms, what are you breathing?
Shh. That's what the suit's for. But I mean, then he's shrinking atoms. Whatever. We're not solving this problem.
Anyway, you're right. You can kind of believe. You can convince yourself this is real.
And I swear somebody's got to be working on something comparable
Elon Musk,
to that.
Man,
yeah.
He's working on everything.
Yeah.
Or one of his captains, because he's going to be a villain one day.
Yeah.
He's going to be the next Adrian. And then she hears the dog, she hears someone coming, the dog starts barking.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's coming, and you know it's...
Yeah. So she goes to stash the suit somewhere.
Which is another plot hole.
Yeah, somewhat frustrating, because it's like, take the suit with you.
And
maybe
Adrian didn't notice?
Yeah, like, that's a really obvious hiding spot. She keeps going back to that closet.
She didn't notice that it was gone. He didn't notice that it was gone, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if he's working at it anywhere, you know, if that dog's there, then he's working out of the...
Yeah. It's like my invisible... I guess he's got two of them for sure. It's like, my second invisible suit is missing. I wonder what happened to it.
Yeah, it's invisible. I can't find it.
Ah, damn it, I lost it again.
And maybe that's an explanation. Who knows?
Nobody
right?
move.
She hides it where she hid her duffel bag.
Yeah.
When she was trying to escape the first time.
Yeah. Which I also find a hard time believing that he didn't have like a camera in that room watching it and finding it. But whatever, we'll let that one go. There's a couple little plot holes.
And you have to. There's plot holes in every
everything.
movie. Even the best has plot.
And it sets up
holes.
the end. So,
Exactly.
it's like.
She gets away.
Mm-hmm. And she gets away and goes to see her sister immediately, and like tries to bring her evidence. And up until this point, you're like, okay, now she might turn things around a little bit. So she goes to see her sister at a restaurant in public, and
So that it
she'll be
mitigates
safe. Yeah. So like if something bad happens, they'll catch it on camera, or like there'll be just other people around. So she goes to see her sister at a restaurant, a nice fusion Japanese style restaurant.
It's the
and
way.
Taylor.
Hey guys, have you been to this restaurant before?
Yes.
Do you know how it's done here?
Thank you.
What would you like to drink?
We have
Whatever's cheapest.
We'll have the free water, please. Okay.
And as a ex-chef, it just makes me laugh because
Oh, it
that's
kills.
definitely, I actually think it was probably a good restaurant.
Yes,
And
probably.
as a waiter, he was probably really good.
Have you guys thought about what you'd like?
No,
We'd like to decide.
Read
for-
the situation.
We
There's someone
need
in pajamas.
A lot more time to decide. Thank you. Okay.
Got his tips to tattoo.
Oh, that's great. You just know.
I say hipster, but I'm like one of
He's
them.
like, yeah, it's so funny because like it's just like all of them are. It's like you're all molds of one another. It's like he could have easily been the dude from the architectural firm who was just like now a waiter.
Very
So
San Francisco, though.
Yeah, it is. And so they get to talking, and,
And they
she's like,
kind of like bury the hatchet a little.
yeah, and that was kind of nice. And you're like, oh, like,
Yeah,
and
I need the strength that you bring. Like, I'm scared of the strength that you...
Yeah, because she finds her sister both comforting and intimidating.
Exactly.
And like right in the middle of this conversation, when they're like burying the hatchet, a knife comes out of nowhere and just cuts the sister's throat, and then flies right into her hand.
Yeah.
And you're like, it just stops you.
It's jaw-dropping.
Yeah,
If you didn't know it was happening.
It was just so
And I
sudden.
didn't.
There was
Yeah.
no setup, nothing.
I always have, whenever there's any scene, whenever it's a movie that's, kind of like twisty and
Yeah.
I always take each scene with a grain of salt. And I thought something would happen, but honestly, I didn't expect it in that moment.
No. And in
I
that
thought something
way-
would happen in this chapter.
Yeah, like maybe when she went to the bathroom or something like
but like it was just she's talking and then knife,
and then just like flies into her hand,
and then everyone sees.
and she's just like in shock that this
And
happened.
I think she acted really well here, where she just like, I think that's one, this type of acting is one most people could do. I think she did it really well.
Yeah, she's exceptionally good
Yeah.
at like the whole way through. Elizabeth Moss, I
Yeah.
forgot her name, but
Yeah.
so her just the portrayal of like that grief and that anguish,
Yeah.
and like she's just on the ground, silent, screaming at this situation, just watching the blood drip off of her sister.
Another
And-
plot hole, though, I think, in the day of smartphones and hipster food picture taking.
It was so sudden though that like.
I feel like the better the restaurant, the more cameras you'll have.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like there could definitely have been cameras
and
in
no
there.
one. So after this, she's found guilty, or
Yeah, of
Right.
Murdering.
but like I also feel like no one tried to like contest it. As again, plot holes that will.
And it's also kind of a bit of a plot hole that James is also interviewing her.
Yeah.
It's like that's a
It's
bit of
like,
a conflict
yeah.
of interest. It's like you just slapped my daughter, now you cut your sister's throat. You're nuts.
Yeah.
But don't have your friend James come and interview you. It would
Yeah,
have been
be one of the detectives to investigate.
And she's really at this point like obviously turned the corner for being like very paranoid about not being able to tell anybody anything, because like he might be in the room. And that's like one of the best plot devices of all time, is that he could just always be there in that restaurant. You're like, he could have just always been there. And like how he gets out to the house to find her there, it's like, how is he getting around? What's
How
he
is
doing?
getting
And
around?
it's just
Maybe
like,
he's got an invisible helicopter.
that'd been hilarious. Just the sound effects and stuff.
So she's in a mental institute
Mhm.
because obviously everyone thinks she's crazy, and she's being interviewed. But because she knows she has that suit, right?
Yes.
Um,
I thought she was gonna point somebody out to go and find it, and
Yeah,
then
but-
he would have found it.
exactly. But so she's being interviewed by her friend, And she, again, she keeps looking at the empty corner, and she's like, I can't tell you, because he might be listening.
Yeah. And then when she's being drugged and held down in her bed, she gets, like, she's, like, losing consciousness, and then you just hear the word surprise. Yeah. So, and again, it's good that they kind of have that thread throughout the whole film, because it's important at the end. So at the mental institute, she's trying to sort out how she's going to kind of deal with this and tell everybody. It kind of looks like a hopeless situation in many ways, though. But Tom comes and visits her in the asylum, and this is where you get, that Tom's in on it now. Yeah. And she immediately suspects it, but he informs her that Adrian knew about, because she had, an important part of the plot that we completely missed is that she had been taking birth control to prevent being pregnant, so that,
which is actually a pretty huge part. Yeah.
It's a huge, yeah,
because he wanted a baby,
but she was not willing to give him one. But obviously, sexual abuse there. But she was taking birth control pills in secret,
and that can only go on for as long as, which is why she tried to escape.
But then he knew about that, as Tom informs her in the scene.
And the nurse informs her that she's pregnant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She learns that she's pregnant, and then Tom says that Adrian knew about this, and knew about the birth control, and so he was the one who switched them with sugar pills or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Tom comes with a proposition to her, which is that she can go back to Adrian in secret, and he can go back to controlling her and have the kid.
Also the money, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, and then you can, like, have all your hands washed of this crime. And then you also just realize the power of money. You're like, this is kind of believable, because like the power of that kind of money is huge, especially in criminal justice.
Exactly.
You don't see a lot of rich people getting the short end of the stick, that's for sure. And so in this situation, it's very believable. And, like, obviously she, like, wants to fight back against this. So she kind of loosely says she'll think about it or whatever, but she's playing some 3D chess, because she steals one of his pens and then some sticky tack from the little "do not write on the table" card. So, and it's a fountain pen as well. Mm-hmm. It's not a ballpoint.
So it's got a
sharp edge to it.
Sticky end.
And so that night when she was in her cell, she goes to retrieve it because she stuck it to the roof of her shower, and she makes it as though she's going to cut her wrist.
Well, she does.
Oh, she does. Yeah, she sticks the pen in and starts dragging it across. She doesn't do it very deeply or anything, because I think she doesn't intend to commit suicide here. I think she intends to, like, make himself known. And so she draws it across her wrist, and she goes full vertical and everything, and then he grabs it and stops her.
Because he wants to have the baby, right?
Yeah.
So he draws her out. He draws action.
Mm-hmm.
She draws him to act, sorry.
Yeah. And then she just goes to town on him and the suit with this, like, pen, and just boom, boom, and hits him over and over with it. And
which damages the suit as well.
Yes. And this is where you get a good look at what it kind of, like, you got a good look at it when she went and discovered it, how it looks like. But now that it's, like, freaking out, it's like he's invisible sometimes, and then other times, like, certain parts of him are showing, so he's like flickering in and out, which is interesting in the scene that follows. And so she makes a big commotion, so a guard comes in, and this is also where you really see, like, how much of a violent person he is as well, and, like, how much collateral damage he's willing to put into everything, because I can't remember, does he kill the guard?
This one he doesn't. He definitely takes a bunch out by, like, maiming them.
Yes.
Or, like, knocking them out at least.
I can't remember if he kills the first guard, but he comes in and finds her, and then, like, he actually sees the malfunctioning suit behind him. And so she escapes her cell because the guards opened the door and everything, and then they both get out together. And then this is where he just basically marks a whole bunch of guards.
Yeah,
it's just
more guards come, and then he takes them out, more guards come, and the whole time, some of them still doubt, but some of them see.
Yeah, they see, like, evidence of something weird going on.
Yeah.
I mean, your brain's not going to immediately jump to invisible force.
You also work at a mental institute, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some crazy shit going on here right now. And so they all get taken out, basically. And so she's kind of left in the left just in this hallway of like maimed or unconscious people, and he shoots one of them in the back of the head. He takes his gun and shoots them. The whole time though, I guess she could have fired a shot at him because there was like a gun right in front of her.
It was, and like,
which is frustrating.
It's also a mental institute, so there's cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, the guards are coming, but now, she's been saying there's an invisible person.
Yes.
And now his suit's flickering.
Yeah, he's fully revealed himself at this point. And he doesn't kill everybody, so he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care that he's left witnesses. And so he goes out the front door, and she's got the gun now, follows him.
She also chose this night. You can see, because it's a storm, right? So she saw that when she stole the pen and the tack, and chose the night to do it.
Because it's going to be raining.
Raining, which is going to expose him.
That's actually how they caught the original Invisible Man, but it was in snow.
Right.
So in the original one, he falls asleep in a barn overnight, and they all see that it's snowing, and so they track him. They track him with his footprints. So it's kind of interesting how I think there's a bit of a connection between those, anyhow. And so she follows him out, and they get into basically a shootout in the alley, or not in the alley, in the parking lot of the mental institution. And so they're going back and forth, and he's hiding from her and like flickering into existence every now and then. It's a good little tense thing. Yeah. I think honestly though, the terror in this film is in the first half.
Oh, for sure, because that's exactly the first 2/3.
Yeah.
The last act is a bit Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a bit Hollywood. It's a lot more action oriented.
Yeah. Still good,
but not terrifying.
No.
The first half I would say was terrifying.
Yeah.
Like it really got your gut.
Do we like that it took this turn?
I
think it went too far.
Yes. I wanted it to go somewhere else a little bit. I wanted it to be this creeping, brooding, control, freaky, dark movie.
Yeah.
And it kind of
was.
Yeah, and it's like, it's a bit of a revenge flick at this point because she's coming after him now. Because she realized that nobody's able to really save her. And since he went after her sister, he now threatens he threatens Sydney, so the younger girl. So he's notably attacking all of the female relatives of her as well. Like, she's really going for those. And so there's an obvious contempt of his for women. And so
the people, he tells her, if you don't comply,
I'll go for
the people you love.
Yeah.
Right? So she knows immediately that she's going to the house.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to the house.
So she calls James and warns him, and so she
steals a car.
Yeah. And so they both. Oh yeah, the poor Asian dude having a hell of a day. Just gets shot at and then like breaks his nose, and then like she steals his car and his phone, and then she's just driving. He's like, he's fine, because he was on the phone. And he calls James.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think he's okay. And so they get back to the house, and this is where you get like the full power of Adrian, because like he's like beating up Sydney and trying to kill her. And then James comes home and like goes after him, and this is where you see like the full power of Adrian, because he's like, obviously it's a feat to fight an invisible man, but just like it's a brutal beatdown.
He manhandles James.
Yeah.
Who's a
beast.
Even you'd think, as a cop, I feel like you get trained in some kind of wrestling or jiu-jitsu. So even if you're invisible, you can maybe grab onto their torso and kind of feel your way around.
But then you might get the impression that maybe Adrian's also trained, because like the way he looks.
Exactly, and the way he took out those guards.
Yeah,
like you can tell the way
he moves.
He wasn't just throwing punches.
No.
He was
like, he's not some out of shape schlubby dude. He's like an athletic. He looks like a
Tybo.
Yeah, Tybo. He's just hitting a 9-round every Friday night. Just working on my fitness.
And he beats him senseless, and at one point I thought to death.
Yeah, I thought he would kill James.
Because he beats Adrian, the Invisible Man beats James to the house and attacks Sydney, who fends him off with some pepper spray,
some mace or whatever she's got,
and then beats Adrian.
Or beats James.
And then beats James. Sorry,
Adrian.
I don't know how am I getting mixed up. And then
this is where Cecilia comes home, and she's got a gun with her, and she takes out the Invisible Man, and she shoots him like 3 times in the chest. And got him down, and then takes the mask off. But it's Tom.
Yeah.
So this is the twist in the film, and this is where like you're supposed to be like, oh, was it Tom the whole time, and did he kill his brother? And
exactly, because at the whole time. So, in the parking lot of the mental hospital, the suit's flickering.
Mm-hmm.
It's damaged.
Yeah.
And then he leaves, right? But the whole time in the house where the Invisible Man is taking on Sydney and James, it's pretty
consistent.
It's pretty it never faults once, right? Until she, sprays him with a
fire extinguisher
and then shoots him, right?
Yeah.
So you're left with doubt, and like you don't know if it just didn't flicker. You don't know.
Yeah, it's a good scene because it's like, did he repair it on the way? He's got his little Invisible Man repair kit, just stitching it all up. But
is it another suit?
Yeah, that's kind of what I suspected. I suspected this twist. I thought it was Tom the whole time, and that he killed his brother. Like, that's kind of what I was thinking was happening.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, they discover that Adrian was held captive
in his own basement.
So like he was like bricked into the wall of his laundry room or whatever, and it's kind of put out there that Tom was the one who did all of this. But Cecilia's not buying that for an instant, and because she's smart, she's like, no, it was just Tom at the house that one time. Everything else was Adrian. And so like she knows, or suspects anyways, that it was Adrian the whole time, and he just set up his brother.
Again, the whole movie leads you to doubt.
Yes. This whole movie is just it's totally like making you rethink yourself, and like it sets the paranoia in really well. But he invites her to go back to his house and rejoin him, and like he's the victim in this whole thing, and she's not buying this.
Well, I think, does she call him?
I think she arranges a meeting of some sort back at their house. So she like gets dressed up and goes to meet him and everything, and he's arranged this. He's really weird too, also a hipster, but he's arranged this weird dinner.
We use that term loosely, right?
Yeah, it basically means anybody with nice hair.
And has a smartphone.
Yeah, you have a smartphone and a nice haircut. Hipster.
Yeah, hipster.
Hey, you know what? He ordered like sushi and beef. There's another marker of the
sushi.
Sushi from a fusion restaurant. What is this bullshit? Szechuan edamame.
I love Szechuan edamame.
It's wrong. You get sea salt. Oh dear. So he invites her anyways, and he's got this.
Says two hipsters, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So he's got like this whole meal set up, and he's trying to like make amends. He's got a weird mannerism about him. He's like kind of like not making eye contact. He's a weird dude.
Well, he's also might be you think he might be acting distressed, like it's
he's trying to trick her and fool her.
Yeah, he's trying to pretend that it's he might be pretending that it's a hard situation for him to explain, like, you know, I love you, it wasn't me, like, you gotta believe me. And she's like,
and James has followed her as well, and he's listening into their conversation because he's got his listening, and she's wearing a wire.
Exactly.
And then
because before all this, she's like, you know, no one's safe until
it's all over, and until like
it's proven that it's him.
Yeah, because she has the line like, I'm not safe as long as Adrian's out there.
Yeah.
Adrian. And so she says, in order to like have a relationship with me going forward with the child, you need to admit that this was all you, because she heavily she knows it was him the whole time, or heavily suspects it, and like she's not willing to take.
She believes it. She believes it is.
Yes, and so. And then he kind of admits to it, because he's like not willing to say. He's like, no, this was my brother. This was my brother. He was always jealous of me, or like I never realized he was so unstable. I thought we were closer than that. But then he drops the line, surprise. And because he had said it in like earlier, like in the text message, and whispered it to her in the mental asylum, and then he says it one more time now, surprise.
With his hand on her thigh.
And then she's just like that, like in her, she's like, he did it, and that's and in her mind that's his admission, because he's not admitting it because he probably suspects she's wearing a wire or something like that. Yeah, he's too smart to be baited into that. But that's all she needs, anyways. And so she's like,
smart, man.
Smart, and so she's like,
I need to go to the
acts
bathroom.
relieved or whatever, and then she's like, I need to go make myself up, and this is where she goes and retrieves the invisible suit. And notably, she knows all the camera angles in the house, so she's set this up beforehand so that the camera angle when she walks off screen, she's out of the shot. So then she walks to the bathroom, and this is where
Adrian
goes
sits down
to eat his steak, and then you see his hand go up to his throat in the security camera and like cut his own throat.
So you could believably, it doesn't look like there's much of a struggle.
No.
He kind of just lifts it.
Yeah.
And then
it goes right across.
Yeah. Well, you can see it.
Yeah.
In the film you see it, but
and she's off screen, not anywhere in it, and so with her knowing where the suit is, you know that she grabbed the knife and cut his throat with it. But she did so that she had obviously walked off. She's got the footage of it, and then she acts distress, calls 911, and says that like her husband is killing himself or has the knife on his throat, whatever she says to make them come, and then she walks off the security camera footage and is immediately like stone cold.
Yeah.
And
James
and then she says James, and this is where she's got like the suit in her bag, and so he knows that she killed him, but she asks him like, what did it sound like to you? And he says it sounds like he killed himself. And so like he's obviously on his side, her side.
There's no explicit evidence.
No, exactly.
Shown.
And I think
even to the viewer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no explicit evidence shown that it was Adrian.
Yes.
There's no explicit evidence. So it's like.
Yeah, it's what's in this film is like what's not seen, and that's the power of it.
What's invisible.
What's invisible. And then the last shot of her is just looking relieved. Like finally relieved that it's all over.
Yeah.
So.
Good movie.
Good movie. Really good to watch in the theater too.
Yeah.
I'm glad we went to see it that way.
Especially with something like that.
Yeah.
I think the score was good.
Yeah.
Nothing groundbreaking, but just
a really good adaptation of it for a modern setting for sure.
Great acting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the original one has its own funny quirks and everything like that, and what I liked about the original is that he's kind of a sane person before he takes the potion, and then it spirals him, and then when he's in the hospital at the end after being shot, he goes back to normal, and he talks about how he was messing with things that men aren't meant to tamper with. So, it's got its own little message in it too, and it's H.G. Wells, so it's super good, but. Yeah, I think this one was a really good modern adaptation of it for sure. I think the inclusion of technology in the techno suit was really the best way you could do it. Because it's like if you tried to redo the same old thing, like unless you did it as like a period piece and a remake, then yeah. And then there's Hollow Man. What were you thinking? Oh, it's so bad, man. I had to fast forward some of the parts because I was like, why? Why is this in here? Shorten it, please. There's like the whole ending to that movie. Spoilers if you want to see Hollow Man, but God, don't watch it, please. It's so long, and then like the final act is like they're in an elevator, and like he's just like he's been burned and he's been beaten, and he's still somehow coming after them in his like half CGI Hollow Man, whatever. I don't know. But he's like coming after them up like this elevator chute and just like clawing them down, and then he just falls down the elevator shaft into an explosion. And that's how it ends, and you're just like, what is happening in this movie? There's also an invisible gorilla in it, and I don't know why you'd ever want to.
I don't remember.
Invisible mice.
Yeah, gorilla.
Stick with the invisible mice.
Or at least just a chimp.
Chimps are scary though.
Yeah.
There's like
better than a gorilla.
Yeah, but if you had like, would you rather fight three? Anyways.
Yeah, chimps are brutal. They can use clubs.
Yes, and they rip each other apart. Yeah. They're very strong. Yeah. So yeah, overall this movie was really good. I thought it was like, yeah, just such a good representation of like that idea of like an abuser that sticks with people. And how that affects them. So it's like you have the element of the actual like mental trauma and the horror that sticks with you, and like it says something like I say, it's like I'm always like careful to like tread carefully when I talk about like how there's some films that pander to like this type of like modern thing, and they try and cash in on this stuff on sensitive topics, but I don't think this one's doing that. I think it's being modern in a great context, like it's a good contextual piece, because it's not.
There's no agenda.
No, there's no agenda to this, and so it's refreshing to have a movie that's like that actually says something really well. Like it actually has that, but it's subtext. It's all subtextual. Right. So it's like it puts across its concepts really well, but it does so without You know what I mean? Like, it's not spoon feeding you like, oh, this is what this is, and it's just like gushing it. So I thought it was really exceptionally well done in that manner. I'd say, like, for the plot holes and stuff, and for the ones we've watched so far,
they're forgivable.
They're forgivable.
Considering, and
like,
again, you know, we'll talk about plot holes in every movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so I guess we got to rank it out of 7 because that's the weird thing we picked to rank.
Did we say 7?
I think 7.
Not 4. Okay.
I don't know. I think 4 was taken by the GPA system, and that's too much trauma for me. I don't want to talk about marks.
7. 5.
I'd say I'd agree with that. Yeah. I'd say what held it back from being, you know, a 6 is something that's like an amazing movie, but maybe not an instant classic. And then a 7 for us, I think we talked about, that's a, you know, and I hate to rate things out of numbers because it did things well and not, but I mean, like, in terms of overall, where does it sit on the scale of movies overall? I'd say I'd agree with you. It's a 5. It's really fun to watch. Everything's really well done in it, but it's nothing super new. And anything that's a remake, unless it like is really groundbreaking with what it does, I don't think you can.
Maybe a 5.5 because, you know, it stood on its own. Considering,
I think there's less of a. I think why it kind of goes down a little bit for me is because it's not horror all the way through. Like, you know,
the turn at the third act.
I would have liked to see
I agree.
more horrific. I don't know what that says about me, but I wanted more horror. Like, I wanted more of what they were doing earlier on.
Yeah, it became just like a thriller.
Yeah, exactly.
Thriller,
kind of an action sort of movie. So it lost a little bit of its appeal and a lot of the tension and terror that it was so capable with.
And not that you can't have those elements in a horror movie, but like it embraced it in the third act.
It really did, yeah. So yeah, overall, amazing movie. I would check that one out for sure.
Yeah,
I'd say watch the original too. Actually, it was fun to watch, you know, and it's short. It's an hour and 11 minutes or whatever. This one's quite a bit longer. Hollow Man is so long. I don't even know if it really ranks in with these.
Was it long? Like, was it long because it was bad? Because this was about
it was
2 hours.
Yeah, this one was long and good. Hollow Man is long and bad. It's boring. And there's so much sexual violence in it. Like, if you're sensitive to that stuff, just don't watch Hollow Man. The performances in it are not good.
Kevin Bacon?
Kevin Bacon is competent, and everyone else is not. It's like, honestly, it reminded me of Fantastic Four. Like, and not that Fantastic Four was, like, I had fun watching that, and I'm like, I could turn my brain off and watch Fantastic Four, but Hollow Man did some unforgivably bad things in it, and it's not fun to watch. It's like this joyless slog mixed with, like, really bad CGI. Anyways, I'll stop talking about Hollow Man.
So this is our podcast on The Invisible Man and our critique
on Hollow Man.
Oliver's critique on Hollow Man.
Yeah. Watch it for the Kevin Bacon. Yeah. Watch the first 15 minutes and then just don't watch it.
No, I actually think I've watched it a couple times.
I think I remember
as younger.
I think I watched it at some point because I remembered some of the scenes in it. Watch Footloose instead.
Oh, Tremors.
Oh, we have to do Tremors at some point. We have to bring in Chris for that. Anyways, guys, we're not going to keep too much more of your time talking about this. So thank you for watching the Fear Itself podcast. Go check out this film. Have a great week. My name is Oliver.
Peter. Sorry, I'm just making faces at the camera.
Well, thank you for doing that. It brings us more joy to our viewers. We're connecting with you. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.